Sci-Fi.
Hey everybody, welcome to Real Life Sci-Fi with Wade and Willie. I'm Wade.
Willie.
This is a podcast about the paranormal and contemporary. Not yet. Not yet. Don't you speak. Don't you do it. this, this is a podcast about the paranormal and contemporary with No! Join us on patreon.com/reallifesci-fi for access to 2 bonus episodes a week, video feeds, and more. Visit RealLifeSciFi.show for all the links. This episode is brought to you by producer BS. BS. That's all we got. Friend of Charles Kwan, BS. If you want to be a friend of Charles Kwan, go to patreon.com/reallifesci-fi. What are you drinking, Willie?
Thank you, BS. I'm drinking Corona tonight. The shelves were empty. I'm down with this.
It's fine. It's not skunky. As long as it's not skunky. Drinking my same bottle of vodka. I haven't been drinking, and I feel like I'm losing a lot of weight. And I didn't know, man. But anyway, let's welcome aboard the SSRLSF. It's our friend. He's director and esoteric symbologist, Stephen Reedy.
Hello. Good to be back. Good to see you too.
Good to
it's been
see
a hot
you, man.
second. I think it's been
back.
a year, right? Maybe
Has it been a year? I think it's been a year. And it was your last show on a TV stage, maybe?
Yeah.
That was fun.
Yeah.
And by the way, since we're talking about beverages, does anyone know what this is?
No.
If you know this, I'll give you $1. Like
Bulgarian Miak. Am I pronouncing it right? Miak?
I don't know.
I'm thinking it's chocolate milk.
I'm thinking it's from Tolkien.
You're close. Ernest Scared Stupid.
Oh,
are you serious?
It's been a while since I've seen that.
This is an Ernest Scared Stupid reference.
That's awesome.
What were they doing though? What's the joke?
So the evil troll was allergic to milk.
Yeah.
But the prophecy that said what its kryptonite was had like a smudge. So Ernest had to figure out the riddle of what kills the troll. And the whole audience goes, yes, it's milk, right? It was like a Wheel of Fortune. It was missing like one letter. And then he shows up with Bulgarian Mayak to kill the troll, and it doesn't work.
Oh, that joke happened in somebody's head, and it just turned into a script.
Jim Varney made a lot of money.
Yeah. Did he write those? Did Varney write those?
If he didn't, who possibly could?
Some hack.
Right. I would say it was, if it wasn't him, it was the cameraman that held the camera the whole time.
That's Vern. Us. We.
Yeah, us. We did it.
Well, that's for another episode. Real Life Sci-Fi. Ernest P. Worrell.
I've never seen the Ernest Scared Stupid movie.
I am proud of that mug, for real. So it's pretty cool.
Peak cinema.
It's pretty good. I mean, it's much better than like the Reservoir Dogs or something.
What would that mug even be? I don't know my Reservoir Dogs inside jokes enough, I guess.
Well, I don't even think it wouldn't be good. It'd probably just be a picture of them again.
My memory is bad, but I would imagine every single Tarantino movie has a conversation about coffee.
True. And David Lynch.
David Lynch.
David Lynch and Quentin Tarantino like review coffee. There is that new
The World's Not Ready. I mean, that would be fucking amazing.
Yeah. Well, Quentin Tarantino did just open a coffee shop down the street.
Oh.
The Pam Grier
in the Vista. Did he put one in?
Yeah, what's it called? Because Pam Grier played the character Coffee. So it's a coffee themed coffee shop that Quentin Tarantino owns. I haven't been there yet.
It's like he just wants to make the world from one of his movies where everything's a pun on an actor.
Yeah. There's worse things.
I forgot to say StephenReedy.com, ReeDy.com.
Yeah, if you want to learn about Ernest P. Worrell, go to StephenReedy.com. No, that's where the creativity side of my life lives, and the educational side of my life primarily lives at a place called the Philosophical Research Society, prs.org. So there you go. That's everything.
And that's what we talked about a lot last time, right? Is just you kind of getting into that. Is it?
Yeah. What was the topic last time? Because we just talked about a lot of things, and it was really fun because I liked sparring with you because you were throwing logical cynicism at me, which is the most important thing you could do with this subject matter, and it's very fun. Because
I don't know what the topic was. We rarely stick to the topic.
Well, I do remember what it led to, and it's something that people love listening to, and I always think it's boring, but I've had to talk about it on more than one podcast because people keep wanting to hear about it, and it's the most boring thing. It's more boring than hearing someone talk about their dream. The one time I had an experience involving ingesting a type of fungus that makes your brain do things, and it led to some weird adventures.
We do something here on the show called the WoW scale. It stands for Wade or Willie.
Wow scale.
Are you a Wade or are you a Willie?
5-question quiz. At the end of the quiz, I'll give you a score anywhere between 0 and 5. If you're more of a 0, you're more of a Wade. If you're more of a 5, you're more of a Willie. Are you ready to be Wade on the WoW scale?
Yes. Let's go.
First question, 3-parter. Do you believe in aliens? If so, have they visited Earth? If so, have they visited Earth in the last 300 years or so?
And I have to say a yes or a no because I really don't have a dog in the alien fight, but I have to say a yes or a no.
Yeah, sorry.
I'll say yes. I want to say I don't know, but since I gotta be dualistic here, I will say yes. And then have they visited Earth? Sure, why not? And what was the third question?
Recently.
Have they visited Earth recently in the last 300 years?
Yeah, sure. Why not?
Okay. Ghosts.
Yes.
Because you had a ghost story, yeah?
Yes, I did.
Bigfoot.
No. I mean, behind Willie, there's a Bigfoot right now, but
Yeah,
that doesn't count.
He's inanimate. I mean, he does have a soul, but he's not.
I did add some glue to him this week. His fur
Is he like an
falling
Evangelion mech? You get in him, and then he has a soul, but otherwise he's soulless yet alive.
I do need to make a costume
wish.
of this guy now.
I mean, yeah, if you could make him look like that, it's a great costume. Illuminati.
Do they exist now, or did they exist?
I don't know. What are your thoughts? Do you think they exist? Like, and to what extent?
Well, first off, factually, there was an institution called the Illuminati, but they weren't as like all-encompassing and powerful as I think, the common lore is nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so I'm going to say no on the Illuminati.
Okay.
Asterisk, though, I think it'd be incredibly intelligent for any government to have a secret layer on top calling the shots, because you can't, if you're not known, you can't be assassinated. And I asked a Harvard Business School graduate, what's the number one thing you learned at Harvard Business School? And she said, guaranteed one thing. If you're trying to change the world, don't let anybody know you're doing it.
Oh, that's amazing.
It would be intelligent. It would be intelligent if governments nefarious or the opposite, very generous, pure, for either of them to actually have this upper layer. I would actually hope that's the case.
I know.
And I'd also hope they're in our favor, but I'm not so sure.
That would be swell to find out about that. It's like, you know what? They're looking out for us and they can't take the heat.
Yeah, it's like Mr. Rogers and Weird Al, just hanging out. Like, it'd be cool. Anyway, okay. So my answer was a no, but that was a tricky one.
Okay, no on Illuminati. What about the multiverse? It's huge in pop culture now, but do you believe in an actual multiverse?
That's such a good question. Again, I want to say maybe, but since I gotta choose one, yeah, sure, I'll go yes. Barely a yes, but the needle lands on yes. I sound like I'm a Willie.
You're a 3, so you're kind of in the middle, but you're skewing toward Willie, I think. What tipped you over to the multiverse being a yes?
I have done my damnedest to try to understand the basics of the quantum blah 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 that explains 1 dimension, 2 dimension, 3 dimension, 4 all the way up to 11, right? And it's compelling, and since we can by metaphor envision ourselves in a lesser dimension, like the flatland kind of thing, we can then start to, through that metaphor, go, oh, I could imagine what higher dimensions would be, where say all of time, our time and space, our timeline can be held as a solid object from a higher, like 5D perspective. And then because that's rational to me, then I keep going along with what the popular science would have to say about it. I put quotes around the word science for those just listening to this. And then it gets into, well, okay, all of time and space can be held as a physical object, sometimes personified as, or symbolized as a tesseract. And they go, well, if you go even further, it's kind of the same thing, but it's with possibility. And then now you have all these possibilities around, and then all of that could be contained in one tangible object that a super advanced being could hold and look into. And what is our linearity, birth to death, and falling apart through entropy is actually just a solid object, not unlike holding a DVD and going, oh, there's the beginning of the movie, there's the end of the movie. And then having a DVD collection. Oh, there's all the different possibilities, beginning, middle, and end. There's a logic to it. And smart people have played with this logic, and it's compelling enough for me to go, okay, sure.
And it also ties in line with what you're focusing on, you know, just the idea of like with all of this stuff, because, you know, of course, the slit experiment is like, well, it matters that you're paying attention to it. And that just throws me into the, oh shit, like, I'm not going to comprehend it, but I want to lean towards trying to figure it out.
Yeah, well, and actually that's where, as a symbolism nerd, one of my favorite ideas that a lot of ancient symbolism tried to play with is the idea of sort of a primordial matter, that the best we could use our brain to think about it is when you close your eyes and you see darkness in your imagination. First, there's nothing, and then you think of anything. Literally think of, I don't know, a basketball with arms. There, now you've thought about it. You've just conjured pure potentiality, which is nothing, and it has become a something. And if the universe is sort of like a big brain imagining things, then what you just said, Willie, makes sense. And this is where like ancient philosophy from around the world is merging with the modern cutting edge quantum physics theories. And the fact they're landing on the same general things, which is primordial potentiality, then becomes something, and it is thought that makes it become that something. If we could ever prove this scientifically, we will understand such a vast chunk of existence, and then we could start to go, oh, multiverse theories, maybe there's more to it. Maybe there's a double split experiment. Oh, when I observe this, it changes, right? It particle to wave. That's crazy, you know. But I think maybe we'll land on it. Maybe we'll see it in our lifetime, and that'd be cool. So anyway, because of all that,
no, I mean,
why not?
Sure, great answer. All right, Willie, hit us with that topic.
Right now on Real Life Sci-Fi, shadow people.
Shadow people.
Those dark, shadowy figures that seem to lurk just beyond the edge of our vision. Many who have encountered these eerie entities describe such feelings as intense dread and an overwhelming sense of being watched. Join us as we uncover these theories, personal experiences, and chilling tales surrounding these enigmatic beings that haunt the peripheries of our reality. Tonight on Real Life Sci-Fi.
So these shadow people, is this like, remember that Doctor Who episode where you would always see something kind of in the peripheral of your vision, but when you went to look, it wasn't there anymore? Is that what this is?
Loosely, yes, but for some people, when they look, it doesn't leave, right? And so there are a lot of like shadow people stories. There's specifically the Hat Man, and then there's the Bag Lady. And we'll get into those broad ones, you know, of just like people explaining seeing shadows. And there's a lot of videos of shadows on CCTV cameras that like are pretty compelling. But I think we should start first with Steven's story. Steven's got a shadow person story.
I'll tell
Steven's story sounds like a pretty good after school special.
So I will
start with Steven's story.
Here's the quick story, and if you want the full story, tune into last year's episode of Real Life Sci-Fi. So first off, not a big drug guy, okay, but I was researching a project involving hallucinations, which I'd never done before. So I tried psychedelic mushrooms once, and in the trip, I saw shadow people. And the trip, first, it was weird visuals, and the room was getting all blah, blah, blah. And as it's supposed to, like a screensaver. And I'm like, yeah, that's what's supposed to happen. And then all of a sudden, the room was filled with these kind of holographic, you know, semi-see-through humanoid shadow people, I guess. And if you Google the word shadow people, like you see it, and that's what I saw, right? They were semi-transparent. And when they'd go near me, it's like they gave off a radiation. And this radiation made me feel the absolute worst dread, anxiety, etc. So it's when they got closer, I felt that. When they got farther, it lessened. Almost like, you know, when you smell something that's been freshly spray painted, and when it gets near you, you smell the spray paint and you get kind of dizzy, right? It was like that, but for the emotions, right? And then later in this trip, then I encountered a pleasant thing, like a goddess or some such. And she actually said, do you want to know what those things are? And she explained them to me, which we'll get into. And then she's like, now your drug trip is ending, and I'm going to set you back down in your body, and the shadow people will still be there. And I'm going to tell you how to inoculate yourself from their attempts to make you feel like shit. So then she told me, and again, we'll get into that. And it's true. I woke up, I went to the bathroom, and I heard them outside the bathroom door, and I'm like, okay. And I open the door, and it runs at me, and I just pretend to not be scared. We'll get into this, and it just leaves. It's like, okay, now, is this real? Is this drugs? I cannot tell you. And to this day, I'm not going to say definitively anything because I don't know. I was under the influence. But I can tell you this much. For the next 1 week, every night I'd wake up and it would be standing in my doorway of my bedroom. And I was definitely sober then, right? And after about a week, I told it it's embarrassing itself and it should just move on and find someone else. And it did. So there's the story. And inside of that story are things we could poke apart. But there's the
Right.
gist.
You definitely did shrooms the right way. I haven't ever I'm jealous because I've never had like a trip on shrooms. I feel like I have to take so much that they don't do that to me. They just make me really happy. I've never hallucinated.
For you. You didn't
Uh,
encounter oh, and let me tell you one of the thoughts I thought. This was my rational mind thinking and nothing I was going to act on, but I actually went, I feel so horrible. This is the worst emotional intensity, every negative emotion turned up to the max, like I was going to burst. And I actually thought, if I jumped out the window and died because I was in a high up building, it would end the suffering. Well, I don't want to die though, so okay, I can't do that. But actually, that thought as a solution entered my head. If I just end my life, the suffering will stop.
Yeah.
Wait a minute, no, let's not think like that. But it entered my mind, which is fascinating because that's how horrible.
Because you don't normally have suicidal ideation.
No, only if it's funny. Only in the comedic.
Right.
No, in the
Yeah,
dark.
yeah,
No.
yeah.
I'm generally especially
Because
when in meaningful
I
work in real
asked
life, I'm
because
happy.
that well, yeah, the meaningful work thing. I'm so depressed lately. I wake up and that's the way I feel.
I'm sorry.
I'll get over it. You know what I mean?
Okay.
But it's that you didn't jump out the window, right? There's always like something tethering you to, well, I'm not gonna
Oh yeah,
die.
and
I don't wanna die.
that thought was quickly poo-pooed. Okay, but what it's meant to sort of describe the amount of emotional pain that these things
yeah.
were creating when they stood near me. And that's part of, like, as we unpack what might these things be, there might be theories as to why that was.
The way that you described it is an experience that a lot of people are having.
Yes.
They feel dread and they can't understand why. And it's so weird to me. And I believe in our magnetic fields running into each other. But and I also believe in that there could be entities in realms that we can't perceive, and maybe doing a little mushrooms can help you perceive that, maybe not even with your eyes, but you just perceive it. And so I don't want to just go straight to the classic, like, oh, the lesser realms, the spirits below that, because whatever is defined is probably not correct. It might be a perception that is in the right direction, especially now that we are dealing with the multiverse. Could there be another universe right here that we are experiencing? It throws me off that the feeling of dread is so big, because, like, if humans are not just walking around dreadful, even though we might be suffering and have miserable lives, like whatever these things are, it's something beyond that. It's not just
well, maybe, I don't know. To me, just from placing my own personal kind of experiences on what you guys are saying, dread comes from being faced with things that you don't want, and death, I think, is the main one, or growing older. Just like, I mean, dread is like just going to work on Monday for some people, you know what I mean? And so I'm wondering, is if there's a point to these shadow people, could it be optimism in a way by making you feel like this sucks. I'm doing too much, but
yeah,
like,
yeah, it gives you a chance
does that make
it
sense?
gives you a
Well,
chance to think higher than that.
what you just said is a great philosophical question that could be anything from why are there viruses and diseases, or why is there evil, or for those who believe in the paradigm of demons, why are there demons? And an optimistic way to look at that would to be it's evolutionary pressure to help, you know, those who are the food source of these things to outgrow being the food source of these things. And at the same time, every predatory entity in nature does have its place. Like it needs to be in the lower realms. And I'm going to say the lower realms, say, of the human body. In our poop areas, there's some really horrible bacteria and stuff down there, but it serves its purpose of destroying food matter to help you release nutrients, right? Now, once they're out of balance or they leave their realm, if that little poop germ in your lower intestine makes its way up to your stomach or your brain, you're fucked, right? So it's sort of like, okay, well, in all of nature, there are predatory, demonic-esque entities that seem to be pure destruction. Sometimes parasites give almost nothing back. They're just being selfish for themselves.
Ooh, I'm glad you brought up the parasite. I'm sorry to cut you off.
Well, real quick, it just fits the machinery of all nature. So go ahead.
I don't inherently believe in evil things trying to be bad. I think everything can justify why it's doing anything. And for the most part, it's just survival, and not having empathy might be better for survival. I don't know. I like the parallel of a parasite because it's like, it's only evil when you put your perspective of why something could be doing something so against what you believe or what's good to you. And I don't, that's just not how the universe works.
Well, no, it doesn't. It's not evil. Everything just wants to survive, right? And so like parasites, that's the way that they survive, is by not giving back.
Don't take
whatever.
the universe so personal. That's what I'm saying to myself.
That's a t-shirt right there. Do it. Make a hat. Well, you know, it's funny. Before we started, I said I was busy working up until the very moment of this podcast, but I was trying to write some notes, and I only wrote 3 words: predators, parasites, and viruses. So we've already landed on the one note I took in preparation for this. Because perhaps, and remember, so this is bouncing off of, you know, do they serve a purpose in the direction of optimism? One could say, that we humans are built to, or most living things are built to run from pain. But we're just advanced enough to kind of reflect and go, oh, sometimes bad things, pain things are the necessary ingredient of growth. The easy metaphor is lifting weights or doing cardio. That shit's annoying. That's uncomfortable. Waking up early, going running, that sucks. That is a form of pain and suffering. And it is a form of destruction. And, you know, it's breaking your muscles down, but then it's encouraging the regrowing of what was, and then some more. And now you're strong. When you are a little kid and you encounter germs at the playground, you get sick a lot, but then all that's building your immune system to not get sick anymore. And that is evolution in a nutshell. So it is the negative evolutionary pressures, the evil forces or whatever of all kinds, mental, physical, emotional, social, cultural, right? That do often push us to build stronger immune systems of all of these categories of existence. So if shadow people are real, and then we could play with what might they be. In any case, whatever they are, including just our own subconscious projecting some kind of psychosis just to ourselves, it could be seen as a useful tool. Maybe. I think in most cases. I'm not going to say in every case, because sometimes you just break the machine, and when your machine's broken, you can't evolve, and that's a very tough place to be.
Well, how did you come out of it? Because you said for like a week, you still kind of, until you said get away, which is like what people say to ghosts and stuff like that. Like, did you
that's
learn
a great
anything
question.
Wait. Before you answer this, something told you to move and saved your life, though, too, right?
Something. Oh, that was a different story. Yeah. Last on the last podcast we did, I told I believe 2 major stories. One was this mushroom thing, and the other was when I was in a house that was previously owned by someone part of the NASA JPL occultism stuff, by the way. A voice told me to go sit in the front yard, and I'm like, who's talking? This is crazy. And I went and I did it. When I returned, a ceiling fan had fallen like 20 feet and would have killed me because it was a really old ceiling fan made out of like thick glass and heavy wood. And it was right above, and I had a high ceiling. So it would have killed me for sure. That was the different story. It might not have a relation to the shadow people thing, but maybe it does because we're theorizing in the playground of etheric invisible things.
I think that's the question Willie's asking is, do you think they are related, or if it hasn't crossed your mind now until now, probably not, right?
The relation that I see, and I have thought about it because they're two of the craziest things that ever happened to me, and I love grounded logic. Okay, I'm open to the woo-woo, but I usually I insult it more than I don't, right? Because it usually is silly and people just fool themselves into believing it. So I need rational logic and hopefully experience to get behind it. So because these things happen to me and I go, this is woo-woo and weird, I go, well, yeah, how are they related? And the only category I could say I landed on why are they related is there's more than our basic sense perception can pick up. How about that? Which are our sense organs, eyes, ears, basic intellect, taste, touch, etc. So there might be more. And sometimes, somehow, we might be a little more open to it. And that might come from forms of destruction like drugs or trauma or near-death experiences. It might come from just being born that way and you have some neurons over here and it makes you more susceptible. Or maybe if you want to be religious and spiritual about it, maybe there's actually stuff. All the spiritual paradigms with the third eyes and the pineal glands and the upgrading your energy computers to be more of an antenna towards the other things going on, etc. Or radiology, there's radiations we can't absorb, and maybe there are ways we can learn to absorb them and unpack them and decompress them and turn it into tangible intellectual intake. These are all the things I just
because your brain is doing these things constantly, I'm assuming. And you've lived through these two things. So what did you draw any conclusions, or are you satisfied just to be like, well, that was weird and now it's not happening anymore?
I haven't drawn concrete conclusions because I have no way to scientific method it to the rigorous liking of the scientific method. I was already curious about this stuff, and this made me study it like it was my job, right? And that's why it became and still is a hobby that even if I'm just driving somewhere or like while I'm taking a shower or doing the dishes, I'm listening to audiobooks and lectures and podcasts of experts of all kinds, including cynics who are exploring it, just to really explore this. Now, when I have encountered the esoteric philosophies, East and West, that could be the Kabbalah, Jewish mysticism, the Rosicrucian or Masonic paradigms, or my favorite, the Easterns, the Buddhist, esoteric Buddhism and Hinduism. I don't want to say esoteric Hinduism because Hinduism is esoteric. That Hinduism, Vedanta, the ancient India stuff, they study this like a science, and they always have, and they've never lost their knowledge. So they're a good storehouse to reach into to go like, well, what do they think? What are they saying? So then what I do is I look at all of them and I go, where are the similarities? I compare and contrast. And it's like, well, a lot of these have landed on the same kind of general ideas. And it matches my personal experience. And it also matches what, remember part of my story I said to come back to is I encountered like sort of a goddess type being. And she just said, do you want to know what those things are? And then she told me. So I guess I'll tell you what she said. How about that?
Oh my gosh.
Oh my God. Did we not hear what she said? Yes, please.
To be continued next time. Okay. No, she said.
No!
You gotta do the Patreon to get the answer.
She said those things. I'm going to paraphrase here, but this is not too far off from what she said. Those things are just part of the animal kingdom. And she said all animals of every kind have sort of a superpower. Scorpions have their claws and their stinger. Humans have the prefrontal cortex with their great reasoning. Some animals run fast. Some animals fly. Some animals camouflage, right? Some animals look like snakes, but they're actually caterpillars, etc. And she said these things are just life forms that live in more of like an infrared radiation realm that's just out of our normal periphery. but there's higher and lower radiations, and why wouldn't life exist on those as well? And she's like, and these things are kind of like parasites or viruses, fleas and ticks of sorts. And their superpower is to change your energetic state. And a way I could describe that is, and this is sort of how she described it. She's like, okay, inside of you, there's like a battery. That's the thing that makes you alive. And when you die, that life energy leaves you. So that life energy is the food source, right? And these things can't eat that because it's burning hot. It's like a sun, and suns kill viruses, right? So what they have to do is they have to get you to turn the brightness and the heat down, metaphoric heat, of your life energy. And the way you do that is by engaging in negative emotions, which slow the energetic vibration of that. And so when you are scared, afraid, anxious, etc., you're actually slowing it down, and then they could eat that. This is what she told me. I'm not saying this is real. I'm saying this is what, while on drugs, a goddess being told me this. And but then when I went and explored this after I came back to reality, and in the 12 and a half years since, I've talked to monks and priests and nuns of every kind, and they all generally land on this same definition. They might call it other things, and of course the more conservative type religions go like, it's evil, it's demons, that's what it is, it's the devil's work. Okay, but can we unpack this like it's an episode of Planet Earth? So
yeah, it does me no good to know that a shark is a shark. I want to know why it's a shark. You know what I mean?
How do they swim? How do they float? Do they like, why don't they get cancer? You know, things like that. So anyway, so in simple terms, fleas, ticks, viruses, just these entities that are not symbiotic and not so cooperative directly, the way bees and flowers are cooperative. This is more in the realm of leeches, ticks, fleas, or the flu virus. They come, they just want to eat you, and they leave. And then she explained a little bit more. And it was that higher life forms, what makes a life form evolved is its physical form can use and hold more life energy. And humans can do a lot of that, and we can do a lot with our life energy. But lower creatures like a crocodile, or a fly, not so much. And then you go even lower, and then you're in the realm of like the virus. They're not even alive, according to science. Lifelike, but not alive. And one of the reasons is, per this drug-induced science explanation, they can't hold or create or self-generate their own life energy. They are pure parasites. They must always be feeding and replicating and perpetuating. We can hold our energy for a long time, and we don't have to kill another thing 24, like at all times 24/7. We could go do other things besides eating. The realm of the virus, the parasite, or the shadow person, according to this theory, is it always has to be eating. So if you reject it, it's injuring it. It's threatening its life. So she said, just don't let it scare you. And it will go, I'm wasting my time. I have to go feed on something, or I'm going to like evaporate, basically. So
wait, I have a question though, because if it, I guess like you're not the only source for life or whatever, but it's dread, right? They bring about dread and stuff, and you wanted to jump out the window, but like then you would stop being an energy source for them, right? So like, why would they push it to that limit? Why wouldn't you just want to eat a bunch of ice cream one day?
Well, much
you know
like
what I mean?
A lot of viruses, they meet their end by being too good at eating, because they eat their host and the host dies, and they die as well. In fact, the viruses that last a long time are the ones that learn to not kill their host, right? So we're just wrapping this in we're playing the metaphor game with viruses. And viruses don't think enough to go, oh, I better not like kill my host. I have to keep my host functional enough to keep surviving, so I could be like a tick inside of its body, constantly feeding. It needs to be alive. So to think like a virus, viruses don't necessarily think ahead the way you just did.
Yeah.
Okay. Maybe they need like a personal assistant or something to help with their iCalendar, to have the long view also.
This is all amazing, because I do love science and the idea that you got to be able to test it again. Otherwise, your personal experience can't be pushed onto everyone until they have it also. And I've heard a lot of different versions of, oh, these things feed on negative energy, and They want you to be scared. And one thing that I keep hearing all the time, which has always rubbed me the wrong way, is like, well, if you just say Jesus, these things go away. And I'm like, when I translate that to what you have just explained, I'm like, oh, if you believe in anything, you just have to
Yes.
believe in anything, say something to make yourself stronger. Because I've been afraid of everything my whole life, I've always tried to figure out how I could be strong. I'm going to say spiritually, but I also am equating this to this energy that is not explained. You can't just put it on to religion or spirituality. Just are magnetic fields that go beyond that. And ideas are strong enough to fucking freak you out, make you strong. But we don't have a lot of ideas to keep us strong. You know, when I picture the Catholic priest coming in to banish a demon, I'm like, come on, man. Like, is it what he's saying, or is it the fact that he believes in it? It's the strength. And I'm just saying, like, I don't want to subscribe to anything, but I have always believed that there are entities around us that, you know, the extremophiles outside of our visual spectrum, like you were saying, there has to be life there, because there was life on Earth. There was life everywhere we look that we could not perceive life being there. There's
Yeah.
life that has survived in space, fungi and tardigrades. There has to be some kind of energetic life too that we can't perceive yet. Maybe ancients could perceive them and they tried to explain them. And the word demon is just, the definition of demon is so fucking lame when you apply it to a religion. But if there was actually something that they were trying to describe, it would be lost on us. All things, it would all be mythology.
Yeah, well, you said two things I'd love to address. Number one was saying the whole in the name of Jesus, blah blah blah. I think you hit the nail on the head. I believe that what they're so if in this theoretical logic of negative entities that are injured by the metaphoric sunlight of health and vibrancy of your own energy, right? It's easy to go, like, there are systems. The Eastern philosophies have the chakras, right? The lower chakras, the low vibrational energy, and that powers the base animal instincts of fucking and eating. And then as you get higher and higher and higher and higher, it's like, oh, creative thinking, rational thinking, thinking about thinking, community, love, philosophizing, selflessness, as a good thing to do and as a survival instinct and as a thing that increases energy for oneself and all. It's like, okay, so it's almost like, imagine if our life energy inside of us was like a sun, right? And when I hate being so woo-woo, but this actually is where the new age and this logic kind of fits. When you're positive and healthy and vibrant, that sun is like, right? And it's like the UV radiation that kills germs in these bad things are germs that we're talking about. But then when you're brought down and you're more like Eeyore, you know, and you're like, it's like your sun gets totally dimmed and all the heat goes away. So they're not going to injure them and they could come and start eating it. You know what I mean? So then when religions say in the name of Jesus or in the name of Buddha or in the name of Allah or anything, tie it into that person saying it. If they're religious, they've spent their whole life brainwashing themselves. I'm not saying that's entirely a bad thing, brainwashing themselves to feel all of the high life affirming, high vibration, high energy radiance when they imagine Jesus, Buddha, Durga, Shiva, it doesn't matter. Their deity of choice. Or maybe it's their kitten, or maybe it's their child, or maybe it's their best friend, you know, or maybe they're thinking about that great project they have yet to do. And which, by the way, real quick ties into one of my favorite books that I believe it feeds into this, is Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning. Long story short, suicide expert who got thrown into Auschwitz and put his own theories to the test while in Auschwitz, then wrote a book about it. Long story short, the antidote to killing yourself is having something meaningful to think about, right? So it's like,
Yeah.
fascinating. Okay. And that's an oversimplification, but yeah. So when the priests go, Jesus, Jesus, right? Maybe it's just a way to get that individual person who has a relationship with that deity to go, they've turned the volume back up. They've turned the radiance back up. And I do believe, because the next piece of this, we should talk about thoughts and the infectious nature of thoughts. I do believe in holy objects, and I don't care where they're from, and I don't care if it's part of a religion or not. It could just be that sentimental teddy bear to the little girl, right? I believe objects can also can become like a recipient of this energy, maybe actually, or maybe just inside our own heads, right? So that's holy water, crucifixes, statues, paintings, symbols, rosaries, whatever. You know what I mean? Those things could be metaphoric or actually reminders of this high vibrational state.
They are vibrational weapons.
Yeah, right. And what's so funny is actually, I believe the person who knows what they want to do in life, and we all like doing different things. So how about the person who wants to be a chef? They love cooking, who is a chef in their daily life, and their mundane material reality, like paying the rent, is taken care of by this also. I believe they're the most shielded people from these bad things that could exist, and they don't even have to be aware of it. They are just doing what they love doing, and it makes them radiant, and it's taking care of a lot of the mundane problems. Work and suffering and anxiety will always be a part of life. But I do believe there is something about being in a engaged high vibrational state that could push away the dark stuff. And one such dark thing could be these theoretical entities of different realms unseen in a different radiation that our senses can't pick up unless we're like on drugs or dying or something. And also the other part I wanted to say is a quick story. There was a guy named Semmelweis. I forgot his first name. Long story short, he was a doctor. Okay. He delivered babies. And all of a sudden, all the mothers he was delivering the babies of were dying. And they're like, Dr. Death over here, right? And no one could figure out why. They'd get superstitious. They're like, oh, maybe it's evil. Maybe he's cursed, right? Then he's like, I have a theory. There might be these invisible things, these invisible life forms, and they want to hurt you. And I'm spreading them. And the reason I'm spreading them is because before I deliver babies, I teach med school in the mornings, and I'm dissecting cadavers for the students. Right? And I go from dissecting cadavers to delivering babies. And then the moms die of infections. I think there might be an invisible life form out of the realm of sense perception. I think they're called germs. Dude, they threw him in a mental institution and beat him, and then he died. Right? Then Louis Pasteur, the guy who invented the rabies vaccine, took that guy's research, Semmelweis, put more logic to it, because Semmelweis was very bad at expressing his ideas. He sounded like a crazy person, even though everything he said ended up being true. There's these things called germs. And if you soap, the germs leave your hands and you don't kill the mothers. And there's a lot of germs on dead bodies, right? Louis Pasteur then took these rambling findings that were not expressed well. And like a good scientist said, I think there might be microscopic entities. They're parasitic in nature. They might be viral in nature. Someday we'll invent machines where we could see them and understand them and work with them. So how is this that different? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Well, so my question is, what is the antibacterial soap for depression? If that's what we want to say about these shadow people, is it Prozac? You know what I mean? Like,
right. It's definitely not chemical, but it's like we aren't trained to focus on anything good. And that is the power. I will say that people who are going to church, no matter what their belief is, they kind of do have a secret power just because they believe in something. I will say that I believe that they give all of their power to this thing they believe in, and they should take some of that power back and claim it for themselves. But for anybody who is not learning anything in that realm, like we need to train ourselves to be these mind warriors. Here's a little side stupid thing that I watched, which was really compelling and very sci-fi. There was this guy who claimed he was a whistleblower, saying that he was in the part of the secret space wars on Mars fighting other aliens. And he was saying that, that everybody's mining. All these different creatures will leave everybody alone. But as soon as you get too close. There are wars trying to control planets and beings. And he was like, there was this one race where they were so powerful that they could just scare the shit out of you, and then they just kill you because they could overtake your mind with fear. And so they had to train to be mental mind warriors just to be able to fight against them. And I'm like, whether I believe any of this stuff or not, it always just made me go like, oh, it's very compelling to try to have a power within my mind, because if there is anything in the universe that's scaring me, even if it's another person, I need to be strong enough within myself to believe in myself. And there's just such a power in that. And so that's what I took from all that, was like, oh shit, no matter what he's talking about, I need to figure out where my power is coming from and what I need to attach it to and where it needs to come from and how to believe in myself in the most scared moments I have.
There's a great metaphor that encompasses what you just said, and also it answers the question, the depression question. And by the way, depression's complex. I'm not answering. I don't have the answer to depression because it's such a
We're not
complex
doctors.
thing.
This is the jackass.
Not financial
role.
advice,
Like,
but AMC's
try
going to the
this.
moon.
Yeah.
Invest in Dogecoin. No, no. What I'm saying, I'm not trying to like protect myself from giving bad medical advice. I'm just literally saying it's such a complex thing. There's nothing I could say that could help someone with depression. That's what I mean. But one of my favorite metaphors that addresses this, that both the Eastern and Western esoteric traditions have, is be a flower. And what that means is, so on the Eastern side, the Buddhism and Hinduism, they have the lotus. And then on the Western side, say Rosicrucians, they have the rose. They both mean the same thing. I'll choose rose in this explanation. You need to figure out, so you are a plant and your goal is to blossom, right? What kind of plant are you? Well, maybe you're born as a cactus, maybe you're born as an orchid, maybe you're born as a Venus flytrap or a seaweed, whatever. So you got to know what kind of plant you are. That's just, your temperament and stuff. So you go, okay, that's my temperament. Here's the type of soil I need. Here's the type of water I need, right? Which one could say is your environment, your life, your habits, etc. Okay, you figure that out through self-reflection and trial and error. And then you go, okay, here's what I like, and here are the behaviors and activities that are like a fertilizer to me. And unfortunately, some of that is the mundane shit, like gotta pay the bills. You know what I mean? However that's done, I don't have the answer to that, but you figure that out. And then maybe the way you pay the bills is the same or is not the same as that which excites you to grow. So you grow upwards, right? And then eventually when everything's just really, when you've accumulated the right growth because of your self-reflection of your conditions and the actions and the meaningful work you're doing, then you blossom into a flower. And the reason they say rose in the Western traditions, like Rosicrucians, is rose, R-O-S-E, is a scrambling of the word eros, E-R-O-S, which is, long story short, physical romantic love. And what they're saying is the libido energy is the life energy that animates you. The libido energy is what leaves you when you die, leaving behind a corpse. So they say you must actually understand that libido energy, which is the force of your existence and the force of creation, being it creating a child or creating art, whatever. And you have to learn that there are traps with that. The world around you wants to take that from you. Parasitic entities, and parasitic entities could be advertising or social media or being taught the wrong things or social pressures that don't do you well, or drugs or playing too many video games, whatever. It's draining out your energy. So
drugs are
the
good,
whole thing
though.
is
Video games are good.
no, I love Helldivers too, by the way. No, but and by the way, there's no saying good or bad in this philosophizing, because one person might play Overwatch all day and destroy their life. Another person might play Overwatch all day and it's stimulating their imagination, and it's letting off steam, and it's giving them a way to ferment their next brilliant thing that will make their life better. So there's no good or bad. The whole point here is assessing for yourself what's good and bad for me as a plant. What is the good water? What is the right soil? What is the right fertilizer, the right amount of sunlight or not? And no one can tell you what that is. There's no, this is where religion messes everyone up, because they're like one size fits all. You do this, you say this, you recite this, you drink this, you eat that, and boom, heaven.
Yeah.
No, I think we got to be adults and look at ourselves. So then there's this flower. And there's something that comes out of the flower. And in this one esoteric tradition, it's a little child doing this, right? And the reason it's a little child is playing with the idea that you start as a baby and you're naive and dumb, but you're full of love and you're open-minded. But then you experience the real world, which beats the shit out of you, right? And then you grow into like a curmudgeon. We all go through that phase. And then you figure out to master your life, and now you stop being a curmudgeon because now you kind of figured out a balance with the world around you. And only then, when you have figured out the immune system of mind, body, emotion, culture, environment, finances, etc., then you could be like a kid again. And the kid is open-minded, loving, blah, 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 minus the stupidity, minus the naivete, and with a strong immune system. And that is sort of the whole path of esoteric philosophy, which I believe is just trying to say, here's probably what we should all be doing, right? Yeah. And the baby is doing this. The baby's name is Harpocrates, by the way, because silence is a representation.
Is it saying shh?
And that's also where the term
or is it being cute? Is it?
Oh no, it's going
kind of touching its lips. Okay.
Because silence is that, as we said earlier in this podcast, that primordial void, that your imagination, when your eyes are closed, that blackness before you said, here's what I'm doing next. Here's what I'm imagining next, right? It's saying to have a direct relationship with childlike wonder and openness and joy and playfulness with the blank slate of your imagination, or the blank slate of your life, the void. So that's that just the symbol of a rose growing and a baby standing in it is actually like the myth that explains all of this. What does this have to do with shadow people? Well, then also along that, plants deal with the funguses, parasites, things that want to eat it, things that want to infect it, whatever. So through this metaphor of being a plant, you also have to go, well, me uniquely, whatever plant I happen to be, and the unique needs and environments I need, how do I stop root rot? How do I stop the aphids?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And it's frustrating because it's not a one-size-fits-all answer. I literally just threw an empty template at you with no actual function inside of it. But I think it is the answer, and I think it does deal with this notion of parasitic entities.
It's crazy because I almost believe in these things more now, because if you look at how many people actually have shadow people stories, now I know that this goes thousands of years before. There have been stories that like maybe they don't attach them to shadow people because it wasn't described that way. You know, you got the Hat Man, the Bag Lady, sitting on your chest, taking your life out of you, sitting on your bed, being at the foot of your bed. And I'm like, oh shit, if something could just be there and scare you, all it has to do is just keep showing up. And then like your fear is just building.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a 6-year-old and I'm like, oh, I want to like teach him mind blossoming. It's like, it's like, we have to figure out, you got to keep loving something alive, meaning in your mind. And it can't be addictive games. You know what I mean? You can play addictive games, they're fun, but you've got to always find something that makes you want to create.
Yeah. And I believe that we're all creative people here. We're cursed with the creative urge. Why? What is that? It's so painful. But then when we actually successfully do a creative thing to completion, and even better, people like it, there is a vibrancy, a blossoming in that moment, you know? It's like, cool, on to the next one, right? There's something there, and we keep doing it, and it's part of the human conditions. There's something there, right? Now, there's one other element to this I wanted to bring up, which is thoughts. So in a lot of explorations of demons and parasitic so-and-sos and maybe shadow people is the idea that all of these are a substance not unlike thoughts. Now, in order to engage with this, we have to go with the idea thoughts are physical things in a very subtle way, in a very, you know, Wi-Fi is a physical thing. Light coming off the light bulb is a physical thing, kind of, sort of, you know what I mean? So in the idea that thoughts are physical things, this mental realm, perhaps life could exist in this sliver of radiation of mental realm. And perhaps there's good things and bad things on these higher and lower octaves. If higher is high vibrancy that kills germs, and then down here are the germs, right? Then we get to play with one of the greatest phenomenons ever. And the thing that makes me most curious, which is mob think, mob mentality. Or put another way, because I love this, memes. And do we know what meme? Do you know the definition of meme? You both probably know this.
I don't know the
word meme.
actual definition.
Thought virus.
Oh,
Thought
no,
virus?
I did not know.
Meme
Where's that come from?
Crazy.
Thought virus. God, is it Gerard, last name's Gerard. I believe it comes from a priest, and he came up with this term not long ago. He came up with mimetic theory, which is, I'm going to totally abuse this. I did study this for a long time because I was very curious a few years ago. But Pierre Gerard, Rene Gerard, something like that. Just look up mimetics on YouTube, you'll find it. And it's basically, I think he was more playing with like, we witness someone doing something and we kind of copy that behavior. It's part of the human condition. We copy the behavior of what we see. And that's dangerous enough, even in the olden days without technology. Witch hunts, dance fever, where an entire town, everyone started dancing uncontrollably for like weeks, and it just ended. It was just this mimetic psychology.
That can't be
crazy.
bad.
Say what?
Oh, that can't be bad.
They can't dancing. Well, I mean, it's probably good until like day 3. I'm like, oh, my feet are falling off.
Like, no.
Anyway, when we enter the realm of social media or just media in general, now the idea of thoughts as virus are really crazy. Now, this is in the realm of more logical, but then if you take it to a further level and you go, oh, an amalgamation of thoughts becomes lifelike but not alive, much like a virus, then maybe we're playing in a realm that is similar to or literally is in the category of the demonic or the shadow people or whatever. Remember, I have no definitive explanation on shadow people. Maybe they're just part of Mother Nature. Maybe they're thoughts. Maybe when you put a lot of thoughts together, it creates a lifelike but not alive entity. And a lot of Eastern religions actually say, yeah, you know, all these gods and goddesses we're praying to, we know they're not real. We're creating a thought entity meant to bestow fearlessness. So when you pray to it, it comes to you because when your mind tunes into, I want fearlessness, I want Goddess Durga, Durga comes to you, now you're fearless, right? Or I want wealth, I want to be better at creating what I'm creating. Oh, there's a goddess for that. There's a god for that. There's a deity or a character for that. And they're like, yeah, we know they're not real. All these rituals are to create thick thoughts that must be fed or they go away because they basically have the equivalent of a weak watch battery in them and they need to keep feeding on devotees to stay alive. But it's not parasitic, it's symbiotic, right?
Yeah.
And then thoughts per this paradigm, when they are dying, they're going to bug you. They're going to keep bugging you and enticing you to feed them. So by this notion, are there negative thinking, anxious thoughts, the stuff that keeps you awake at night? Could we view those as parasitic entities that we created that are like, Dad, feed me, I'm dying?
Yeah. Like,
you know what I mean?
Don't think of this right now, I'm dead.
Yeah.
Please
and that's
keep being afraid.
And that is why meditation and mindfulness practices are so big in those paradigms. And in fact, the Tibetan Buddhists went up to the top of the mountains because they're like, lower vibrational thoughts and life forms can't get that high up. So we're going to do all of our praying up there, right? I wonder how true that is, but I've been told that by people who are experts on that. So, you know,
I will say the biggest shift I've had in my life was when I started doing Vedic meditation.
Really?
And,
what kind of stuff are you doing?
I mean, it was a long time ago and I keep like not doing it, but I've been plagued with anxiety my whole life. Didn't know what it was. When I finally figured out what it was, I fucking couldn't do anything about it. And I was then anxious of anxiety. The Vedic teachings that I got helped me figure out how to quiet my mind. And I'm like, oh, fuck. I recently saw some kids on some field trip in the park the other day, and they were having just a quiet moment in the woods. And I was like, God damn it, that is the most healthy thing anybody could do. Is just have a quiet moment in the woods. It like didn't get rid of my anxiety, but it like made me accept that like this is something that's happening. I can deal with this, and definitely quieted it. And you know, it's coming back down. I'm like, okay, I need to start meditating again. But I'm like, if you were taught this as a child to even just quiet your mind, it just makes you so much stronger as having to deal with emotions.
Sure,
changing.
but dude, as a child, I didn't have anxiety, or not that I remember, not to the crippling
Homework,
extent
bro.
that I feel like I do. Huh?
Homework.
Yeah.
Homework.
No,
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 but
no.
homework was a
Anxiety? No,
drag.
continue.
Homework was a drag, but
I
it's
agree with you that I didn't have it back then.
I
but
feel like
but
I grew
built
into it. I
these
feel like
things. Yeah.
after puberty, there's all this new shit that happened. As a kid, I hated life. I used to cry myself to sleep at night, but it wasn't anxiety. It wasn't. Maybe it was. Maybe it was.
Existential dread. You
Yeah.
thought the big
Yeah.
questions. When it comes to teaching kids the good habits or not, like, first, I'm not a parent, except of a cat. So I don't know the right and wrong ways of raising a child, but I think no matter what, the shit's gonna hit you. And it's probably good when the shit hits you because you learn. And yeah, I guess it's all about like what tools.
It keeps things interesting.
Being a neurotic child.
No, once you hit it, once you grow into that, you're like, oh, I can't just like play on the playground to be happy anymore. Now I got to figure some stuff out.
Oh, right. But also, I'm assuming we're all in the same, we're millennials, all three of us. We did experience the world absolutely shifted right when we came of age. High-speed internet, 9/11, and the repercussions of that.
Yeah,
Smartphones and social media were not far after. We went from analog to being bombarded by thought viruses, if you want to put it, or just the pressures of over information, indulgence, and addiction. We weren't raised in.
Well, yeah,
it just
right.
hit us like a baseball bat.
Yeah.
And it was so cool.
It was amplified. I mean, it was amplified because but if you talk about like groupthink and mob mentality, definitely that was a thing in the grade school playground.
Oh,
And
for
now
sure.
with the internet, it's just amplified everywhere. So we're destroying ourselves. We just keep making it easier to destroy ourselves with all of these thoughts,
Right. And then, so be shadow people type entities, be they real or not, how we should live appears to be the same, which is to try to overcome the types of parasitic or negative influences that steal our life force or direct it in ways that don't lead us to growth. Again, empty templates here, because I don't know the answers. I just know certain things in my life, when I do them, I love life, and when I don't do them, I hate life, And then when I hate life, I'm more prone to more of the darker influences or bad habits and etc. And are those influences from entities, or are they just because I'm immature, or both?
Or is it chicken or the egg? I mean, if you're talking about these things are drawn to negativity, when I'm not working, when I don't have a job, when I don't have a purpose, is when I'm the most depressed. I don't think shadow people came and made me not get a job,
Right. What if, though? Mom, could I borrow some money? The shadow people won't let me get a job.
I've always contemplated having to interact with, because I've always believed in aliens. So like having to interact with an alien entity that is just more thought-based, and going like, I've had a hard time in my life controlling my thoughts. Half of it's anxiety. Half of it is like, maybe my anxiety started from being in church and being like, I could just sit in church and just be fucking cussing for an hour straight. Fuck, shit, man, fuck you, blah, blah, blah. And like, am I in charge of this? I'm not doing this. Like, why is this happening? I can't stop it. Not to just give that to something else that's like, oh, this is a demon. It's not you. Like I have to handle this myself.
Well, I think you could have been doing that involuntarily because that was not for you. You know what I mean? Like that, there's got to be something innate about like how you find joy. I mean, there definitely is. That's why people have different passions. But you're probably sitting there in church going like, this is not for me. I know it right now. Shit, fuck, whatever.
Right.
And it was just your brain telling you like, this isn't for you. Like, don't pay attention to this.
Yeah, there was this one time when our youth pastor was like, maybe it was a pastor, I forget, but it was just like, if you imagine yourself robbing a bank, it's just as bad as robbing a bank. You know what I mean? It's the
Well,
thought.
fuck that
It's the
guy.
thought. No, and then that
No.
fucked with my mind, going like, "Oh fuck, dude! Like I can think about bad things and then choose not to do them." If
Well, that
my
guy must have the most boring brain in the fucking world. If you don't fantasize about robbing a bank, then what are you doing, man? That's fun.
right, and that threw me in the spiral of I need to control my thoughts, and then I just never could.
Isn't that interesting that that thing you were told, which was meant to make you clear-headed and pure and a good little boy, actually did the opposite? Isn't
Yeah,
that interesting? And that's the whole a plight, I believe, of modern society is that sort of formula there, which is we're always looking for an authority to give us the simple one-size-fits-all basic answer. Just follow this and you're okay. And that goes wrong more often than it doesn't. And sometimes it's the church leader or the monk or the priest or the teacher. Sometimes it's the government. Sometimes it's just society's current dogma of the day, or that, Instagram, Pinterest video that said you should only eat celery for every meal to keep the shadow people away. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it's dangerous, and it's childlike thinking in the bad way. I think childlike thinking in the good way is something we should all have: wonderment and awe and love and curiosity and stuff. But in the bad way, where it's like, mommy, daddy, tell me what to do and I will blindly do it. And they say, don't imagine robbing banks. It's like, well, first off, I'm not at risk of robbing a fucking bank.
yeah.
Second,
I'm 12.
I'm a screenwriter writing a bank robbery movie. So
Right.
am I going to hell now? Like, what
Yeah.
the, like,
Yeah.
that's why that flower myth that has lived through eons fits so well, because it's like, right, you can't just say, you should raise seaweed like it's a cactus. Good luck.
Yeah, and it's what you said. I mean, it just goes back to your one size fits all thing, and it just doesn't apply. It's because because this one pastor, he figured his life out because he found God or whatever. And yeah, sure, he wants to tell everyone, like, this is how you do it. I did it. But it's like, that doesn't work, man.
But no,
like,
when you're trying to teach someone else and using your life as an example, well, it doesn't apply. So that's an interesting lesson, that like nobody can teach you anything based on their experiences. And that's the whole conundrum.
Everyone's an idiot. I mean, you have a child.
Being like, you should listen to me.
Dude, no, like, fuck those old people. If old people think that they know something, they're the dumbest ones.
Well, I think usually humility goes hand in hand with the most intelligent people that I know, because they're always exploring. Like, okay, I think this is what works for me, but tell me. I have a buddy right now, and I respect him quite a bit. He's really into this thing that actually eating a lot of sugar from fruits and vegetables mostly, but a high sugar diet is actually incredibly healthy. This goes against everything I know and have experienced, but his results are actually shockingly good. Him and his wife are getting extremely fit, and he's like, my mental clarity is better than it's ever been. No matter how good his results are, I don't think I'll actually try it, but I'm paying attention. Like, dude, you're doing literally upside down world of everything that makes sense to me, but it's working, dude. I can't tell you you're dumb, because you two, your wife are looking good very quickly. You know what I mean? Like, you just eat. I'm like, what do you do? He's like, yeah, I just like eat like a whole watermelon for breakfast. I'm like, you don't get like a sugar But anyway, you know what I mean? Like, fuck, we don't. And that's why also.
Well, but the part he doesn't tell you is that he smashes it open like Gallagher, and that's really what's feeding him.
Yeah, and then he pours
the joy of
beef
smashing
on it. But it's funny, Willie, much like you, I went to a Catholic school for 9 years, and it made me extremely cynical. I mean, like, there were some great teachers there who really improved my life and stuff, but as a whole, I was so cynical of the whole thing. I'm like, these people are fucking zombies. And then we'd be in church and everyone's like, peace be with you, peace be with you. Then 5 minutes later, they're road raging, trying to get out of the parking lot, like, fuck you, talking shit about each other behind each other's backs. Oh, did you hear blah, blah, blah got a divorce? That means they're going to hell, all that stuff. So I became very cynical about religion, because I don't like zombie think. I think zombie think brings people to the world to a bad place. However, now, and I don't have a religion, I actually have a respect for at least the intentions of religion, which is to bring people together and try to get them in a unified way to aim towards evolution. Now, it gets a little weird that evolution is a little cult-like and in service of things that aren't so helpful to those very followers. I don't like that. That leads to a lot of disaster.
we talk a lot of shit about religion, and you just kind of hit the nail on the head of why we do that. Like,
Mhm.
maybe we've never articulated it, but that is the reason. It's like, it's followers. It's like, just think for yourself, you know?
Mhm.
And if that's what you think that you want, then fine, go ahead, man.
Mhm.
My cousin is like a devout Catholic. It's all insane and stuff. It would never work for me, but I'm not going to be like, well, don't do that, because he's super happy.
Right. And
Yeah.
that that proof might be in the pudding. Let's see what happens when an inevitable disaster comes forth, and if he can maintain that stability and balance, that we have a lot to learn from.
Right.
You know what I mean? But yeah, so now where it gets interesting is that shit, the shit talking about the dark side of any religion of any kind. I believe I forget who said it. There's a quote, "Man is a religious creature." I believe that 100%. And it just means we are prone to find a system, doesn't need to be religion, but we find a system and become blind devotees to it. And sometimes that system is Fox News. Sometimes that system is CNN. Sometimes that system is, just other is a corporate entity that you become a devotee of, a brand, you know what I mean? Or a political.
Nike, Air Jordans.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I
Nike.
am an Apple nerd. I do have only Apple. But anyways,
Tide. Oh, that smells so good.
say what?
Probably, I said Tide. This smells so good.
Must eat Tide Pod.
Probably killing you.
But again, as creatures who do fall into wanting to follow a belief system of some kind, I think
Right.
that more than anything is what we must pay attention to. And once again, keeping this a little bit on topic, when it comes to the notions of shadow people or thought possession, which might be the same thing or might be similar things, the goal here is to inoculate oneself against infection from those things. And so it's all just an immune system game where it's like right now, all of us were infected by social media, which has only really been attacking us real hard for about like 8 to 10 years. You know what I mean? And I think we are all not all, but a lot of us are becoming cynical. We've realized it makes hateful tribalism and stuff. And I notice a lot of my friends have learned to disengage from that and have learned to not stop being loving to their friends and family just because they posted an opinion. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
That same formula would be the same formula that was the one time I did drugs, that the goddess woman said, yeah, just don't let it affect your energy. And it can't fuck with you. And that's why, oh, by the way, and that's why when I saw the shadow person staying in my bedroom for every night for a week, I said, you're just embarrassing yourself and you're wasting your time. I was speaking to the logical engineering of your battery's draining, dude. You're not gonna get a recharge from me. So you go find my neighbor. Go next door, right?
Shrivel up
Yeah.
and die.
Yeah. And so then it does make me wonder, when a lot of well, all the religions, including Catholicism, people forget this. They have the censer with the sage or the incense in it.
That
A
smoke
lot of
thing,
them
yeah.
believe this is a physical tool, almost like spraying bug spray in the room. Like,
Yeah.
just it changes the vibration
We
of the room. So these
sage
things
every
can't come in.
time we feel bad energy.
Yeah.
We had a couple incidences recently, and it's just like, okay, sage and salt, clear it out. Doesn't matter what you think, just get rid of it.
I don't know if you guys have cats, but my cat and most cats have this thing where sometimes in the middle of the night they start freaking out and they're looking at something. You wake up and there's barely enough light in the room to just see them, and they're looking at something distinct in front of them, right? And my cat does this every now. And so one time she was freaking out at this nothing. So I had some sage, and I'm like, well, let's try this. And I saged the cat in the room, and then she stopped. And I'm like, whoa, dude. Whoa.
Wow.
I don't know.
Yeah.
See, I want science to look
She
at
was
this.
probably freaked out. She'd never smelled sage before. She was
it's
like, what is he doing?
I just gave her brain damage from the smoke. No, again, and I love exploring this stuff. And here are some personal cause and effect examples. Again, I'm not calling this fact. I'm just calling this experimenting.
No,
I
it's
desperately
my
want.
favorite thing in the world is to discuss these things because there's no right or wrong answer, so you can't feel stupid.
Yeah, well, it's also a safe place to be like, well, I'm not sure. Well, I can't say this definitively. I can say definitively that this mug is from the movie Ernest Scared Stupid.
Mhm.
Or can I? Because it's all actually just vibrating particles and nothing's real and nothing's ever touching anything. And it's
Doesn't
filled with
actually
It's
water
the
say
vapor.
whole
Miak.
universe.
But when it comes to all of this stuff, I hope in our lifetime someone invents like the machine that could like look more robustly into these, radiation, these vibratory realms that
Yeah.
ancient occultists have been talking about. One Thanksgiving I spent at my friend's place, and my friend's dad is like one of the top radiologists like in the country, right? And he's a really cool dude, and he's a surfer dude too. So he literally is like a mad scientist genius, surfer dude, dad type, right? And I'm like, hey, dude, you're like a radiologist, right? He's like, yeah, man. I'm like, I got some weird questions for you. They're super unscientific. He's like, oh, throw it at me. I'm like, all right. And I explained basically everything we're talking about here. He's like, yeah. There's layers of energy, man. And we don't even know most of them. I go, all right, here's a question. What about the sun? He's like, yeah, the sun's all of them. High and low. It's all of them. We just can't feel most of it or see most of it. And I'm like, so do you think there might be life in those other octaves? He goes, oh yeah.
Wow, that's very forward. Like, not too many people would say that,
Yeah,
and I
there,
appreciate that.
there is. I used to have a poster of it, and in Kabbalah, there's a diagram called the tree of life. Yeah, I'll just draw. I'll draw a rudimentary version real quick because it's related to this.
And I'll
Um,
say this while you're drawing, like, I do believe that there in vibrational sound healing, and I do think that it's crazy. They're looking at all these churches that used to have these bells, and they say that the bells of the church are actually vibrating the frequency that matches the design of their stained glass windows they have, where it's just like, oh, this is like telling you what frequency is happening when the bell rings.
Oh yeah, I love I befriended a couple monks over the past decade. One is a monk at the Vedanta Temple in Hollywood, and the other are my friends at the Kali Temple in Laguna Beach. I picked their brains endlessly. I used to go get food with one of these dudes every Tuesday for like 6 years. Every Tuesday, just asking questions, and a lot of it would be the bells and the environment and all of that, and their belief. So this monk I was talking to, who, by the way, looks and sounds like David Lynch, by the way. So just put that in
Nice.
perspective. I would ask about this because there is a temple that they do something called the puja in every day, which is a tantric ritual. And by the way, you hear tantric, you think sex. That's not that's not what it is. But it is. They believe in subtle anatomy and something called the koshas, which are 5 different energy layers, very, very subtle, and that get subtler and subtler, that basically are used for different functions of us. One would be digestion, one would be thought, etc. One would be the sensation of bliss. So they're utilizing all of these through a lot of it's mental exercises where they're imagining different parts of their body and they're saying certain sounds that don't have meaning. They're called bij sounds. They are literally just vibrations that are meant to alter like the particles and energetic vibrations of the human body. Once they do a bunch of that, then they could start throwing a bunch of energy onto an altar. So then people could go near this altar and receive this energy and actually kind of get the fleas and ticks off of them and stuff like that. So I'd ask them about this and everything you're saying they ring bells and they light incense and they have all these things, and it's all about creating a good condition for the high vibration, the high vibrational forces to come and to repel the low vibrational things. So all of this and all of the religions kind of have the same general things when it comes to the windows or the stained glass or the good smelling things or the bells, etc. It's shocking. They all have this, right? Here what this is a horrible looking drawing, but this is the Kabbalah tree of life, right?
Yeah.
And it is actually there's a lot, it says a lot of things, but it is also talking about the high to the low vibrations. This is the highest, and sometimes they'd say this is like the energy of, say, I'm oversimplifying it and only choosing one sliver of this to talk about, but the brain is using a robust amount of high energy to reason and be creative and stuff like that. And then here at the bottom would be like the most mundane. That's the most animal instinct side of it. So this is sort of like the high to the low of the human being, but they also have another one below it called klipoth. And that's basically where all of the like bad thing, the pure parasitic virus type entities live. So the Jewish mysticism actually has a system of visualizing everything we're talking about here. And they do talk about sort of mental parasitic creatures and stuff that you could only really access if you're like really trying to. You're like you're doing things that are deliberately trying to like throw yourself into hell, basically. So it's a fun thing to explore. The Kabbalah Tree of Life in Qliphoth, which is spelled with a Q. You'll figure it out if you're really that interested in it.
I don't know. I don't know if you will figure it out. Qliphoth. It sounds like a He-Man villain.
Let me look this up. I'm gonna find the spelling.
No,
right
it's
now.
okay.
Okay.
You can look it up, but we should wrap this episode up. We've only been talking about shadow people and nothing more.
Wait, real quick. I found the spelling.
Oh, wow. Qliphoth.
Oh, so there is no U.
Photh.
Qliphoth.
Yeah. Anyway, rabbit hole for some of you followers there.
I could listen to you forever, but we do need to wrap the episode up. Willie, do you have any sort of like final thought? It's helped me. Listen, here's what I'll say. It's great for me to, when I wake up and I just want to fucking kill myself. Trigger warning, whatever. It would not financial it would be amazing. No, yeah, disclaimer. It's good for me to be like, oh, those are just shadow people, like they can go fuck themselves. And I guarantee you the next time I think that, it will put me in a better mood. Usually I just smoke weed. I'm not like a weed guy, but like when I'm really down, I'll just smoke weed and then it goes away and I'm having fun. But I like thinking of shadow people as a, fucking harbinger that I can just get rid of. Just tell them like you're wasting your time. So that's what I took away from this. And I think it's helpful.
I am in the same boat where it's just like after my whole life, I'm going to turn 48 this year. And I'm like trying to figure out how to
Willie, he called us millennials and now you're telling him that you're 48. The math doesn't add up.
You look damn good for 48. Never would have guessed. I would have guessed 35 for sure.
I'm just like, I have this fun life energy and I have a kid and I want him to not suffer as much as me. But I'm like, oh, you know what? Him suffering is what's going to help him not suffer later. And for me personally, I've fought my whole life trying to avoid death and not be afraid of things. And I'm just like, oh, it's after. And I'm not going to say everything was because of our conversations today, but I'm just like what I'm leaning towards. And I did get a lot of strength after tonight's show.
Oh,
in that my goal is to just mind blossom whatever my flower is and try to be so happy that I can laugh at something that should be scary, because I'm not going to even know what should be scary anyway. So what the fuck are you got a fucking hat, Mr. Shadow? You have a hat? Like that's fucking, I don't know. I'm just laughing going,
yeah,
like,
bitch, I got to pay taxes. That's way fucking scarier than hat man on my bedside,
And I do like I've always had a chip on my shoulder against the affluent. And I'm just like, you know what? Everyone's suffering. Everyone's got their different battles. And it's like, whatever.
No. Eat the rich. Fuck the rich.
I'm like, it brings comfort to me to know that like, well, we do have to be powerful in the mind. Whatever the future is, it'll help everyone if we can all focus on being powerful within ourselves. I think that's going to help fucking everything.
I mean, listen, we're so careful, or not careful, but we pay a lot of attention to physical health, just in the way of like, wash your hands, don't roll around in shit. You know what I mean? Don't play with dead bodies before delivering babies. You know what I mean? We're so careful about that, right? We have our Windex and our 409 and our bleach and our laundry machines. Wonderful. So cool. Love it. But we don't think about mental hygiene.
Yeah.
And we don't think about energetic hygiene, which is kind of the same, because the mind is sort of like the reins to the horse that is the emotions. You know what I mean? And I do think that's like, as far as evolution goes, we've done pretty good up the evolutionary ladder of like really doing stuff with the physical. We've built machines, we've built computers and airplanes and shit somehow, you know what I mean? But we're barely tadpoles when it comes to self-reflection of our own energies and our own mind. Like even like,
Yeah.
listen, I'm talking this talk because I love symbolism, which gives me tools to think about this stuff better. But boy, I'm not actually good at it. You know what I mean? The discipline of it's difficult, you know? So it is actually just going like, oh, everything we've talked about here is sort of a really profound quasi IKEA instruction manual. Remember, I'm saying IKEA instruction manual and not well-written encyclopedia, right?
Yeah,
Because those
yeah.
things, IKEA instruction manuals are just those pictures of that guy who's like, you know,
We still all know someone who's proud they didn't cry at something.
yeah, that's weird. Yeah, that's a strange cultural thing. You know what's funny is I'm not really prone to it, but like I go like I wish I could because I'd feel better, you know, when like something tragic happens. I'm like, come on, where's that? Where's that? No, it's nothing to be ashamed of. It's probably a healthy, good like clearing out of shit. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
anyway, mental hygiene, energetic hygiene keeps the
Yeah,
shadow away.
it's hard because you get fatigued. It's like when someone dies and you go, I'm gonna live my life different now. They were too young. And then like a week later, it just kind of wears off. And I feel like that's a lot with like what'd you call it? Mental hygiene.
Yeah,
Hygiene.
mental hygiene.
It takes a lot, man, to like maintain that because it's so easy to just like go back to what you're doing.
Well, one of the trickiest places is to be uncomfortable but comfortable enough, and uncomfortable because of, say, lacks of discipline or falling victim to anxieties or runaway thoughts or bad habits, etc. Because when you're rock bottom, you literally have nowhere to go but up. But when, you know, it's like, you know, the weather's nice and I could play Helldivers too. And, you know, like my cat is cool and I got friends, you know, like there's enough good things to kind of
Totally.
keep the bad things from forcing a growth. And I believe that's where a lot of society is because we are beholden to the bread and circuses to keep us distracted. And when it comes to us as individuals or myself as an individual, it's like, right, you know, those bread and circuses, I like them. I like them. I partake in the world. But sometimes they're distracting away from fully realizing, embracing the shitty parts of self or life that I should like really look at with a magnifying glass and engage in the discipline to overcome it. And again, we're talking about the plant metaphor. Plants go through these different stages. You know, it's not like a plant just goes whoa, flower. It's like versus the seed, then there's the roots, then there's this little thing, then it branches, and then, you know, it has to take in carbon dioxide. You know, there's a bunch of stuff that has to happen over time until that blossoming could happen. And I do believe there are people, and I believe I know people who have achieved that. They're not in a spiritual sense, but it makes them, if I were to define them under spiritual terminology, those types, because they're living great lives. They're doing what they were born to do. They're talented at it. It benefits themselves and everyone around them by embracing this authentic action that they do. And I think that's probably the great goal. What is the action you love doing? And how can you do it to its fullest? And I do believe in the action of doing that, we are pushing more energy into ourselves, using it more. And I think that might be evolving us in ways we can't even begin to understand. Not just
We talk, yeah. I
but
mean, we talk a lot about like evolution and AI and like what's the future, and we've never once talked about on this show just kind of emotional evolution.
yeah,
And I
mind, body, and
think
emotion. Those are sort of the horses that we are the driver of. And sort of, I guess, in closing, if I were to recommend some books and movies that acknowledge this, and none of them talk about shadow people, by the way. Weirdly enough, the movie Gravity, the Sandra Bullock movie Gravity, is a hyper simple, great metaphor about drifting through life and hating one's own meaningless existence, and then finding reason to live, and then doing
Yeah.
so. And then in conjunction with that, books that play in that theme is Outwitting the Devil, which is an audiobook you could find on YouTube, and is a fictional conversation with the devil. I feel like I recommended this in the last podcast. It just talks about a lot of these, except for the shadow people part, it talks about a lot of these concepts we're talking about in a great way, a fake interview between journalist and a devil. And
wow.
another is Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning, which is a great and short audiobook if you're an audiobook kind of dude, or of course a great book. Both of these books address what we've talked about here in really beautiful ways. And when I go back to these books, I always go, oh my God, yes, I forgot about that. This is perfect advice, that kind of thing. So I really recommend that if anyone wants more homework after this.
Radical. I'm gonna take some homework.
Yes.
Dude,
Anyway,
thank you so much for being here and talking to us. And you should come back more often than
anytime, hit me up. I love
once
it.
a year or
You guys are
whatever.
really fun to talk to.
So StephenReedy.com and all of the homework that he's given you.
I feel better after tonight's show.
Well, I'll send you the therapy invoice. What's your address?
Yeah, right. It's like, Willie, this is what therapy is like. It's just thinking about things differently. Thanks everyone for listening. Patreon.com/RealLifeSciFi. And we're going to continue the conversation over there. Just because you're paranoid doesn't mean they're not after you. We'll see you next time.
Real life sci-fi.